welcome to Brand X Reviews. In the last video that I did on the channel, I was getting into my vinyl journey, my record players that I've used over the years, and quite an interesting subject in general. I don't really know if I brought anything new to the discussion other than my own kind of subjective thoughts on things, but I did get one question relating to just choice basically, and what I might recommend in terms of turntables. Now, this is off the back of a conversation I was having with this person some time ago, and as they said in their message, I steered them away from buying the cheaper suitcase turntables like the Crosley Cruiser and things like that. Crosley's not the only one that makes them, but they are probably one of the more prominent ones. The kind of ones that you see in shops, they're usually priced around about 60, 70, 80 pounds, or if you're in the US, similar in dollars, to be honest. I mean, they can start around about $50 or something and work higher, but I'm in the UK, so I can't really comment too much on the US prices. I really would recommend you that you just push the boat out a little bit further. You don't have to break the bank, like I said in my previous video. Buy something decent, such as we have here, the Audio Technica LP120. This is my main turntable. It's not the best. A lot of people in the vinyl community will probably be scoffing at me saying that this is the turntable that I use, but personally I don't think I can justify breaking the bank. It depends on how much money you've got to spend, really. It does get a bit ridiculous, does this thing. But like I say, judging from the person that sent me the question, and knowing that your lifestyle is probably comparable to my own in comparison to a lot of people that spend a lot of money on records, I'm going to give my recommendation based on what I own. So this is the main one. There's actually two that I'm going to show you, two Audio Technicas. This is the main one that I use. Like I said in the previous video, I bought this one back in 2018 and it's held up very well since then, and it does get regular use. It was about £230 from memory. The choices that I had at the time were that you could get this in black or in silver. I went for the silver one. And not terribly easy to get hold of in high street shops. I don't think I've ever seen this for sale in any of the usual places. Unfortunately, I had to buy this online, but it's a very nice player. Now, the person that was asking me about this was asking about the size of the thing, because she was saying that her father has some old bulky turntables and she doesn't want to take up too much space. So a turntable on its own rather than an all-in-one unit is probably the way to go. So that's what we've got here. Now, in terms of size, obviously with the lid down, let's just have a quick look at the thing. For a bit of perspective, here's a 12-inch record. Put this on top so you can kind of gauge size and so on. Now, going across, it's about 1.5 foot across, so 18 inches, roughly, just a little bit less than that. And in terms of how deep on your shelf it's going to go, it's just over 1 foot. So there you go, and obviously the actual height of the thing, if that's of concern, is about 6 inches as well. So that's the kind of size scale that we're looking at there. Now let's just look at some of the things it's got on here, because I kind of briefly covered this in the previous video, but it's not a full-blown review of the thing itself. If you want, go and check out Vinyl Eyes, the channel. His channel is very good. He does an in-depth review of this. There are many other channels that have done it as well, but anyway, let's have a look at the kind of things that you've got here. So obviously you've got an adapter. This is for your 7-inch singles that have got the main ring punched out in the centre. There's a whole backstory as to why some 7-inch records have that. The on-off switch, very straightforward. It's off at the moment, you turn it on. Kind of hard to tell because I've got the light shining on this thing, but when you do that, it does, you get a bit of a light there turning on. Start and stop, so I'll just turn it on just for demonstration purposes. You've got that. You can change the speed, so you've got 33, which is the main one. You've got 44, or if you press them both, you can play 78 at the speed. But if you're going to play old 78 records, you need a specific needle for that, because if you use and this applies to any other record player as far as I'm aware, a normal needle will damage those records and the needle itself. You need a special needle for your old 78s. I happen to have one ready. but that's a different subject for a different day. That's a spare needle that I keep in there. So you've also got pitch control, which you can slide up and down. Obviously, if I was playing an actual record, that would demonstrate that better. It kind of locks in the middle, and you've got the direction. So if I wanted to change the direction, I can do that, as you can see there. Quartz and pitch, I don't really mess about with those. That gets a bit technical. This thing here is more for DJs that are playing in the dark, because obviously nightclubs and so on. If you press this, it kind of helps. It's difficult to demonstrate in the light, but it does shine a bit of a light this way across, and it helps you just see where the tracks are if you're playing an actual record. Now the actual, and it just pops back down like that. The actual, the turntable mat itself, you get a standard felt one, and I just use this as a dust cover basically. The actual mat that I use, if I was going to put a record on here, it goes straight on here. This is something I bought separately, made of acrylic, and it just does add to the sound quality apparently. And I did notice when I started using this, I did notice some slight sound improvement. But normally it would be like this. This would be your turntable mat. It goes on there, and you just put a record on top of there, and it plays. But like I said, I just kind of use that as a dust mat, and I use this turntable mat instead as an alternate thing that I bought separately. So that's basically the LP120. I'll have a look at the other one now, the one that I use as a backup. But before I do that, actually, I kind of missed. I didn't talk about the actual tone arm at all. I completely avoided talking about that. So I switched out the cartridge on this one. Well, the needle. So all of this is part of the thing when you buy it, but this part here I replaced with an Autophon 2M red. Kind of difficult to see. See if I can zoom in. Yeah, Autophon. It's a very nice one. There are different Autophon ones. I think when this goes, I'm probably going to upgrade to the blue, maybe, which is an even better one than this. Not terribly difficult to install. You've got these wires. There's tutorial videos that will show you how to install these things. This thing just kind of pops off here if you unscrew it. So if I wanted to play 78s, I would just unscrew that there and switch it for this one. Now the actual thing itself, this locks the thing in, so that stops it from kind of going rogue by itself. Once it's up like this, you can obviously put it on an actual record. This lowers the thing very slowly. I'm not playing it, so I can lower it. As you can see there, it's kind of lowering itself. I don't know if you saw it, if you noticed that. That lifts it back up again. And you've got a counterbalance on the back, which I've calibrated. It's all fun and games when you're getting started with this thing. Some people find this process very frustrating. I didn't mind at all. I found it quite easy. Balancing the tone arm to make sure that it's applying the right kind of pressure when the record is playing. I mean, this is really what's nice about having a turntable like this, the kind of tinkering that you can have. You can also adjust how high this goes up and down, because depending on the kind of mat that you're using here, that can affect how high you want to have this. But it's not terribly difficult to do. It sounds more daunting than it actually is, I think, anyway. So anyway, like I said, I was going to move on before, but then I've realised I forgot to talk about the tone arm. But there you go, I'll leave it there for this one, and next we will have a look at the Audio Technica LP60. So if we go into this room here, this is kind of my chill out and relax room, and in here I have all sorts of stuff. As you can see, I've got a mini fridge, but I set this up, this MIDI system, back in late 2019. In fact, let me just open the blinds and let a bit of daylight in just so we can see things a bit clearer. That's better. So late 2019, up till that point I'd had my old TIAC all-in-one turntable, and basically with that I had it all set up in here, and it didn't last all that long, as I was saying in the previous video. It took up a lot of room as well as an all-in-one unit, but it was about the same kind of space as this basically that it took up. So I wanted to replace it with something, but I thought it'd be nice to have something that does more than just play records. And I'd inherited this old MIDI system off my late granddad, who passed away a couple of years prior, and and I didn't really know what to do with it. The turntable that was on it was knackered. It was a Technics system, and it was everything that you see here, but it had a turntable on top that isn't this one, and that was knackered, and all of this wasn't set up brilliantly. But I was determined, and I tinkered around with it. I got it working. I swapped out a lot of the wires and so on, and rigged it up so you've got a decent audio with the radio. I upgraded the radio antenna, little things like that, just so I could get more stations. The cassette deck isn't perfect, but it's vaguely fit for purpose. And the turntable, like I say, was knackered, so I replaced it with this, which is what obviously you're asking about. Now, if space is of concern to you with a turntable, I would definitely recommend this one, because this one's even smaller than the other. So this one, as you can see, has a lot less features than the other turntable. I'm just going to get the tape measure out 1 second, if you can hear what I'm doing in the background. Obviously the other turntable has a lot of options, a lot of things that you can tinker with whilst playing records. This one is a lot more basic, but with that comes convenience, I suppose. So the actual size of this thing is just over a foot wide, about 13 inches, and about the same in depth. It's a bit more square as this one, whereas the other one was more kind of rectangular. And the height on the thing, when you can see there, I mean, the other one was 6 inches tall. This one's about 4 when you put the actual the turntable lid down. So this one is a Bluetooth one, but you can connect it via a wire. The other one, I mean, getting into the speakers, there's a reason I didn't mention the speakers when I was talking about the Audio Technica LP120, the one I was just showing you, the silver one, is because they have a similar setup here. So I'll mention the speakers here, and that kind of covers both. Now the speakers that I use are these Edifier bookshelf ones. I mean, they're not identical ones downstairs, but they are very similar. These are just Bluetooth versions of those. Again, not terribly expensive, but very nice for what you get. They're about £100, I seem to remember. And you can wire them in using auxiliary connectors. So auxiliary connectors are the ones that are the black and red ones. The white and red ones, as you can see here, very straightforward. Or you can use Bluetooth as well. I think those are actually not for the turntable. They're not connected to the turntable. I use Bluetooth to connect from here to here. But also I've got all this other stuff as well. So I think these cables are actually for the connected to this, not this. But you can use those to connect it. So you've got plenty of options, basically. So, like I say, if you wanted to, forget that I've got all this, just focus on this. You could have this turntable, which is okay. It's fine. I listen to this and I don't think, oh man, this is like awful audio quality or anything like that, as I would be doing if I got one of those Crosley turntables. They really are terrible, those things. They're just toys, basically. And obviously the size of that and the speakers wouldn't take up too much room. So realistically, if you wanted to have something like this, you're not talking a lot of space. I mean, let's just see with the speakers, and obviously there's a bit of a gap between the thing as well. Let's just see how wide we're talking. Bear with me. Sorry, just gonna get the actual tape measure out again. So let's just say from there to there, about 30 inches, something like that. So it's not a huge amount of room that it's going to take up. There's ways of doing it. I mean, these are bookshelf speakers. You don't have to have them by the side. You could have them kind of somewhere else nearby. The Bluetooth as well, so you're not necessarily limited in terms of cable length or anything like that. There's various ways of doing it, and then you just have the turntable out on the surface somewhere. I would recommend that you have it on a sturdy surface. This is something that I built myself, and originally it was a bit wobbly, but now it's a bit more sturdy. And obviously, if you put something heavy on it, because that's the other thing with the Crosley turntables, they're very light, and if you put those on a table, it isn't very sturdy. It's prone to getting vibrations. You know, if a car drives past, if you're if you got it next to the window or something, and the house shakes a little bit, or if somebody walks in and it creates a bit of a rumble, the slightest thing can cause a skip, which can damage your records, it can damage your needle, and obviously it ruins your listening experience as well. So have it on a sturdy surface, and really you want to get a turntable that is quite heavy. This isn't really all that heavy, but obviously with all this on top and me having made this thing to withstand shakes and knocks and vibrations. I haven't had any issues with this, so that's something to bear in mind. Luckily the LP120, the one I was showing you previously downstairs, that one is kind of heavy just by itself, and it's got it's built in such a way to resist vibrations, that kind of thing. So all of these things factor in anyway. I could talk about other things as well, accessories. I think I covered that in a previous video. I might do specific videos about specific accessories. Might be an idea for me to talk about cleaning records as well, because that's another subject to talk about. There's lots of videos I could do, to be honest. I was going to do one about turntable clamps, the ones that go over on the top, and again add to stability of the record when it's playing. So there's lots of things like that. If there's anything specific you want to ask, by all means throw a comment or send me a message or something, and I'll see what I can do. Finally, before I go, I didn't mention the mat on this thing. As I said in the previous video, I just use the mat that came with it, to be honest. I mean, I could upgrade it on here. I did used to use a cork one, as I said in the previous video, but I kind of retired it just because I don't think it really enhanced the listening experience on this thing. It's a very basic one. I don't really use this that often. I can't justify spending a huge amount of money on this one because I don't even use it that often. But like I say, as you can see, unlike the previous one, you don't have the kind of options that you had with the LP120 from downstairs. You can only use this needle, this cartridge, as far as I'm aware. You can't use different variations on it. It doesn't have a counterbalance that you can tinker around with. It doesn't have pitch control, I don't think. No, it doesn't have anything like that, but it doesn't need to. It works just fine as it is. The way this works, what I will do as well, I'll just demonstrate very briefly. This lifts it up and down. Obviously it goes up pretty quick, but it lowers it down fairly slowly in comparison. You've got start and stop, so you don't at any point have to lift the thing up and put it down. If you want to do that, you can. As you can see, as soon as you start to do that, the thing moves, but you don't have to. You can just stop and start, and it will go up and down, and it knows exactly where to drop itself at the start of a record, and when it gets to the end, it puts itself back. That's one thing that this does that the other one downstairs doesn't do, actually. That one is a lot more manual. If you leave a record playing, the needle will just stay in the middle pretty much indefinitely until you stop it and move the thing back. This one is more automatic, it'll do it by itself. So in some ways this has features that the other one doesn't, but again, who cares? So I will leave it there. I hope this video wasn't too long. I hope it was of interest to you anyway, and if there is anything else you want to know about this, just let me know and I'll do my best to answer it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, you can like and subscribe, but I will leave it there. Thank you very much.